Hi, everybody. Today we're here at wonderful Gyeongju for 2025 APEC CEO Summit to discuss about our AI and our leadership, not only in Korea, but also globally, what to expect and what our experts, Nitin and Krisan, has to say. What are the key most the most recent trend that you guys have noticed about AI and how the corporate leaders are responding to it in the global market?
Globally, there's three big trends that we are absolutely seeing. And frankly, we are party to many of the discussions on these three specific trends. The first one is around agentic AI, particularly the creation of a digital workforce augmenting a human workforce. The second big trend that we are seeing is around sovereign AI. In fact, a lot of the discussions that are taking place at the APEC CEO Summit have been on the topic of sovereignty, not just from a data and infrastructure perspective, but also what does it mean from an AI standpoint. And that's certainly kind of the next big trend that we are seeing. The third one, which we absolutely have to be mindful of, and frankly, it is going to emanate and it is going to essentially be a lot more exponential in APEC, is physical AI. Not just with respect to humanoid robotics, but also as it relates to autonomous mobility devices, autonomous vehicles, autonomous drones, and all kinds of basically kind of other autonomous capabilities that are starting to appear in our physical environment. It's those three trends that are absolutely ubiquitous.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that the several conversations that are happening around, and the realization is that I do need an agentic platform. My enterprise is going to need some kind of agentic platform, and I'm going to work with all the cloud providers. I'm going to work with all my independent software vendors and SAP and a ServiceNow and a Salesforce, but I still will need my own agentic platform to connect all of those different agents, right? And so there's a MAS, right? Multi-agent system, right? That people need to start thinking about. And that's the conversation that we're having with a lot of Korean clients, actually. And then I think the physical AI, no doubt, that is taking off in a big way, especially out of China, where all the manufacturing right now, and almost every manufacturer in China is now looking at how do I apply robotics, but again, physical AI, which is again taking agents and putting the agents into physical moving manufacturing devices. So edge AI. Those are the two hottest topics right now. And then again, where are you going to run it all? Where's my AI infrastructure? Absolutely, right? How do I start thinking about an AI factory? And this is where I think a lot of the limitation is, because people are just thinking, I need agentic and I need physical, but they're not thinking, what environment am I going to run all of this in? And that's the hot topics.
Well, actually, that kind of leads to my next question was, with AI being such a big agenda for all the CEOs from small companies to big, where would be a good start, or how should they start their AI journey? If you could give advice directly to the CEOs.
So I'll say very transparently, first thing, stop experimenting and focusing on proof of concepts. The time and age of experimenting, exploring proof of concepts is way beyond us. The maturity and the sophistication of AI at this point of time is such that it is far better to take a look at a process, a workflow, or a function, reimagine what that process, workflow, or function could be, and then how you apply AI at scale. Focus on reimagination, focus on end-to-end process, focus on scale, and focus on deriving value. That is the mantra as it relates to how you actually get return on the investment and what most organizations should be thinking of, as opposed to just being stuck in kind of the valley of experiments and POCs.
So then recently, another topic that as a strategy guy, when I meet with clients, a lot of the questions that I get is, I've done POCs here, POCs there. A lot of my, peer CEOs are doing the same with their companies. We're not really sure whether we're getting an ROI on it, right? Or are we seeing the real meaningful end product from it, right? And I think they're all questioning, do I continue on, right? Anything you would like to say to CEOs that's pondering, about those kind of questions?
Yeah, I think that is the number one limitation. I think globally, I think a lot of CEOs, executive committees, board of directors cannot fathom the longer term view, the longer play that they really need to embrace. They cannot think about an ROI in 1 year, 18 months, 3 years. They have to be thinking about the long game. You've got to be thinking about 5 years from now, 10 years from now. This is one of those moments which a lot of people are calling, this is the Kodak moment. This is the blockbuster video moment, right? This is when companies that are right now on the list of NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange are not going to be there in 5-10 years, right? With the pace of change that's happening. So you have to really, as Nathan just said, you've got to reimagine your entire business, and then you have to try to figure out how am I going to derive different value for my company, for what I do, not incremental process improvement, incremental SG&A line, percentage points, improvement. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what AI is about.
Recently in Korea, the more, I guess, AI awareness grows among the companies, we're actually starting to see slight problems here and there as well, particularly from data breach perspective. A lot of companies that want to start getting advice or consulting from us from AI perspective are starting to realize that such security, data breach security, is also a topic that they need to be mindful of. They come in without even thinking about that, and then as they start the conversations with us, they're like, oh, that is something we should be mindful of. And we're seeing on the news different type of incidents happening from major conglomerates from that perspective. So when we think about AI and AI implementation or AI planning from a company's perspective, what type of advice would you be able to give from that security and data breach perspective? What are the kind of top things that they need to keep in mind from any type of advice that you would be able to provide to them?
It's not good enough to just implement AI. You also have to govern it. Yes. And frankly, one of the initiatives that every single company should be undertaking in conjunction with advice from the board is AI governance. How do you actually set up the systems, the process, and the control environment for cybersecurity, IP protection, content infringement, as well as the trust that you actually need to foster as these AI systems actually kind of proliferate. Now, in addition, there's another element that has to be added to governance, and that is preparing your human workforce for change and cultural management. Why? Because agentic AI in particular is creating an abundance of a digital workforce. That digital workforce are going to show up as your employees on your balance sheet. And consequently, those digital employees are going to be working in conjunction and augmenting your human workforce. How do you actually prepare your human workforce for the necessary change and the work distribution that is going to take place? So governance is key, but governance has multi-dimensions to it. Cybersecurity being one of the several that I just kind of outlined.
If I can add, I think in Korea and in Japan, there's a lot of planning. Everyone likes to create a plan, and they like to create a master plan, right? And there's like all kinds of initiatives that are around planning and master plan. And again, just to really break it down and to simplify it, a plan is a strategy. So there's no mystery, right? A strategy is a plan is a strategy. So you need to be thinking about, when you say master plan, a comprehensive plan, all the different facets that Nathan just mentioned, those are all components of it. And so again, you can call it planning, you can call it IT planning, you can call it IT strategy, it doesn't matter. That's what you need, right? And if without all those components being taken into consideration, you're just diving in, and you're going to see what happens in the news. There's going to be missteps, there's going to be errors, right? Because you didn't kind of take a holistic view, right, of all the different moving pieces. And the last point that Nathan just made about employees and the cultural change, and just thinking about the workforce, the amount of workforce change that's going to happen over the next 5 years with these agents is tremendous. It's tremendous. It's not about losing jobs. Now, the way that the CEOs and the boards are thinking is, what would you do if you could double or triple your workforce? What could you do? What kind of innovation could you do, right? What else could you do to your entire ecosystem? If you were to double or triple your workforce, with AI agents, right? With agents. I mean, you have to start thinking about what we always said was impossible now can be possible, right? That's the mindset shift, right?
That's actually personally quite mind-boggling. A lot of the times, when people think about AI, and I love how you said, we're augmenting the workforce. Both of you said a lot of people think that AI is going to replace us. I myself, I have 2 young girls, and I think, what am I going to have them major in, right? But Chris, what you said is pretty tremendous. Rather than seeing from a replacing perspective, what would you do if you had 3 to 4 times more employees and more skill sets and resources? That's incredible.
I'll say this, and I've kind of mentioned this many times. It's not necessarily that AI will replace your job, but your colleague and your coworker who becomes proficient in using AI is the one who's more likely to kind of replace you. That's what we have to be mindful of.
And I think, because for all the viewers from Deloitte Network, they're all watching this, hopefully will feel much more comfortable hearing that. Let's say the user's perspective. Like, why should they apply AGI in the future? Or like, what would be the actual difference? And how would they differ if there's a difference from that perspective?
It's probably less about why they should apply it. It's a natural evolution of the sophistication of the capabilities, the models, and the technology that would be available. If a pharmaceutical company can apply AGI when it is ready to figure out how and when and at what pace they can come out with new therapies, and do it in a manner where that therapy is personalized to the point that it actually is applicable precisely to the DNA of the patient, they will absolutely apply it. It becomes a necessity. It's a new market. It's a way for them to innovate. It's the way for them to actually elevate, in this case, the patient experience and the needs of that particular patient. Similarly, national governments, in the course of defense, if they can apply AGI so that they could have better kind of defense or protection, then they're inevitably going to go in that direction. Agriculture is another one of them. In fact, if you go around the world today, the greatest wastage of water as a natural resource is not what happens in urban settings. It happens in rural communities. Why? Over usage of water, which then kind of leads to the drop in water table at the ground level. If you are actually if you're able to figure out what are the forms, where and how to undertake drip farming and the type of crops that should be grown with the type of or the volume or quantum of water that is going to be required, and all of that is actually modeled by AGI and applied at scale, it actually solves a big conundrum with respect to water scarcity. So needs of society, businesses, and governments are going to drive application of AGI.
I think the way to think about it maybe it's not an either or. This is an evolution. It started with Gen AI. We were all on Google. We were all searching things, and out pops an answer, right? Or not an answer, a list of where to go, and then you have to keep clicking to find the answer. Now we type in an answer or a question, or we ask a question, and now the answer comes back, right? We ask it to produce something, paint me a picture, right? Write me a story, write me a poem, right? Now now that's happening. So this is now when that continues to become what Jensen Huang calls reasoning, right? Now the AI is reasoning, right? So you ask a question and it actually reasons for you. The evolution of that is going to be, okay, well, let's ask it like really tough questions, right? What do we do about water scarcity, right? What do we do about pollution? What do we do? There's all these kinds that is going to then create a lot more jobs, right? It's going to create more opportunities, right? Of overall. So that's the kind of, again, just the mindset kind of that you have to be ready for. It's an evolution. It's not really, should we do it or shouldn't we do it? Or should we do only agentic AI and not do AGI?
Can I ask silly questions? Do you foresee like a future where even bad things can happen, like the movie Terminator?
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of colleagues who are like, Terminator is going to happen. Yeah. I'm telling you, right?
You should go first because you and I talked about this. Well, we make fun of people who think about AI as Doomsday and Terminator. So, or the Will Smith movie, right? The iRobot, right? iRobot or like Terminator. Like I think very early, and again, Nathan and I have been working together now for over 6 years, right? At the start of our relationship with NVIDIA. And we kind of laugh at people who kind of just think that way, right? It's going to be doomsday, right? I mean, the opportunity that is going to present itself, right, to all of us, for those of us who are ahead of the game, stay ahead of the game, stay on top of AI, right? Learn how to use some of the, the tools that are coming out now with AI. For those that stay ahead, that's the maybe over optimistic side of the world, but like you said, there are bad players, right? There are bad players, there are bad agents, right? So there is going to be cybersecurity threats, right, and breaches, et cetera, right? But there's also then the overwhelming other side too. So I don't know. It's light and dark. I don't know if it's like doomsday-ish, but is the threat there? Of course, the threat is there, right? Because there are bad players, right?
Here's what I would simply say: whether something like Terminator happens or not will probably have nothing to do with AI. It's going to do with how we as humans actually think, proceed, and progress as a civilization. And simple, basically, analogy from history. Every genocide that has taken place through time immemorial has been by humans.
So let's end positively. Do good. Do good.
Among the Asian countries that you've both have traveled, there's a different level of maturity on adoption of AI or thinking and planning of AI. What would be kind of a best practice or best case that you've seen among the many Asian companies that you have met and that really impressed you? Oh, these guys are really making a good effort and being the frontier of this within this area.
So I think, again, because of my experience of living and working in China, right, from 2015 to 2019, right before COVID, I lived really the birth of WeChat and the birth of Alibaba, right, and Alipay. And from 2015, when my family, we would have RMB, we would have $100 RMBs, and you had to carry like a stack of them around with you to do anything, to do any kind of commerce. And then within that 3-4 years to go completely to a cashless society. In my mind, I mean, China is so advanced and again, if you use the WeChat app or you use the Alipay app, it's pretty amazing of how much they have been able to, you can do now, all with your phone. And it's changing industries there, right? The car insurance industry is completely different. Any kind of retail industry is completely different. So that is, again, the application of AI, the application of high-performance computing, right, at scale. So it's very impressive. And I was just there last week, and I continue to, again, now the physical AI, it's very impressive where the advancements that China is trying. They're not doing POCs. They're rapidly trying to fail. They have a rapid fail type of mentality. Try, fail, and then oh, now we fixed it. Then you're done. It's an interesting what's going on in China.
Here's what I would say, given the time that we spend in many countries, right? And if I were to put it very briefly, China is at the forefront of R&D and innovation. Okay. India right now is at the forefront of application and adoption of AI in both society, by consumers and enterprises. Korea is starting to make strides as it relates to how actually they can export innovation beyond just the borders of Korea and take it to other shores and starting to exert regional leadership. Japan is looking at how to apply at scale within their context, given the size of their economy as well as the conglomerates. So every country has a slightly different disposition, but regardless, everyone is cognizant, everyone is investing, and given basically some of their history and cultural connotations, they're going about it in a slightly different way.
Thank you very much for all three of you, particularly Nitin and Chris, for your time and wonderful insights that you provided to us today. As we wrap up, any quick kind of advice or last words for our Korean clients or Deloitte Korea employees, or even the Asian clients and the Deloitte AP members?
Well, my revelation at the APEC CEO Summit and from the time I've spent in Korea is that there's tremendous opportunity over here. The scale and the innovation, as well as the fact that we've got titans of industries based out of Korea, is something that we need to kind of recognize. We need to have a game plan. Many of them are already at the forefront of how they're thinking and applying AI, and we need to be able to have the necessary capabilities to service their aspirations. That is actually one of my biggest revelations as it relates to the market opportunities that are absolutely present in Korea.
I think, again, just to the team, don't be afraid of AI. There's books, there's podcasts, there's training. We have curated training. Go take it. Go learn about it, right? Don't be afraid of it. Grab onto it.
As the firm's Chief Strategy Officer, I will make sure that I take both of your advice and implement from planning and training perspective. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.